put that on. Don't be afraid to munch. You can munch. There you go. Have a seat. I need one more. Hey, Cameron, this would be good for you. I'll share. It's a family business.
Yeah, is this a preview of the Rangers next series or something like that?
Nice.
Mavs. I'm more of a Mavs guy, so we got a ball game here in a little bit.
So, talking about the playground business, John Cole, that's his dad. They are in the Houston market. That's all play right here. Family business, though, right? I mean, you touched on play and how it's evolved. Share that, if you would. Well, before we get into that, we have Phillip Neeley with Dunaway. He's been a landscape architect for how many years now?
Yeah, I got out of school in '83.
Oh, really?
And did a master's in '86.
Wow.
So started in a professional firm in '83, so 40 years ago.
That's amazing. And you know Mr. Jim
Lee.
Jim Lee with Lee Park and Play. How did you come across Mr. Lee?
I would have met Jim at conferences, traps conferences back in the 80s, probably late 80s, early 90s. And as play types and play equipment and play research was being just moving along, and I would have met Jim and would have seen things you guys were doing. So
back in the days of Kid Cube.
Yeah, Kid Cube, the square post.
Yeah, or Iron Forge.
Iron Mountain Forge.
Yeah, right.
So, I found your booth. I had to, I work with Joshua Mycock.
Okay.
You know him?
San Antonio office? Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think he's been with y'all for about a year now.
That's right.
And, of course, I know his wife, too, Kylie. They have 2 babies now, or 2 little ones running around. But I thought I would ask some questions about the evolution of play.
Okay.
One of them, I don't know who designed this, but there's a hill slide right here. And I'm curious to know, like, when y'all come up with the concept like this and, hill slides, when did that start becoming a thing?
Hill slides?
Yeah.
That's a great question. The way we think about the spaces, and I say that about the team, the group begins to think about 2-dimensionally the size, 3-dimensionally the transitions from where kids, I'm not even talking about just purely on the equipment, just the space. Sometimes our areas for play already have to deal with grade change. So could transitional climbing, slope, slides, whatever, become a part of the space? So what the team does now, since visualization is so quick, in my early years you would have to draw everything. You could sketch it, but now they can do it in the computer, where we begin to study the play space in total before anybody thinks about pieces and parts. What is the space? What is the theme? What should it all be about? And then there's a hierarchy, eventually a hierarchy of what's the main play experience, stopping point, kids, how old are they, young, older, where are the parents, grandparents? So it becomes this study in people and places and maybe 3-dimensional transitions. It used to be, honestly, early in my career, you're just picking equipment out of a catalog.
Wow.
And now we can study the space as a design team before we say, hey guys, we'd like to have maybe this here or this here. We're already into that kind of spatial thinking.
It's an awareness thing at that point, right?
It is.
That's really cool. Because what I think about when I first got in the playground industry, I always thought, you climb up here, you slide down there. That's the way I was raised. When I was playing, that's what it was. You climb here, you slide there, and that's pretty much it. And now when I am designing, I think of traffic control. I think about having entrances and exits. You don't want to have any jams. You want the kids to be able to flow, be able to get on, get off. And my favorite thing is to design something where a kid can stand back and say, how do I get there today?
Yeah.
Completely different from what they did yesterday or the day before, or last week when they went to the playground, anything like that. So it's cool to me that you guys are already thinking about that stuff before we even
talk to a vendor.
That's awesome.
That's interesting.
Yeah, in fact, sometimes our thoughts may shape you guys testing new equipment pieces.
I can imagine, like berm slides, like he was talking about.
Yeah.
I think you guys probably paved the way for that a lot.
Well, berm sides, there's some challenges that we face where, you can have it set too high, and the way the ASTM standards are, if you have it at too much of a slope, right? And then it becomes, okay, how are they going to egress and digress up and down this thing? So then it becomes like, okay, do we do, steps, or do we do something? I've seen log steppers, and for us as a playground designer builder, we don't want to get sued, and so we kind of think about like, okay, what is the manufacturer going to allow? But then it becomes like, how do we incorporate y'all's vision and make it happen?
Right.
And it's a challenge, but I mean, it's a challenge that I'm up for, because the whole point is to create these experiences and these environments that kids and their families want to go to.
Right.
Right. So nothing's easy. I mean, I would love to hit that easy button.
Absolutely.
But that's okay, because I've heard, and this is a good one for you guys. I tell myself, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. So
A lot of truth to that.
there is.
I agree.
So any questions you have I know you're the newbie, sort of.
I can't think of any right now. I took a landscape architecture class in college, and that was very difficult for me. I'm not a school person, and that was a lot different than just simple marketing classes and
Okay.
management. And it's like, bravo. I couldn't do it. My brain doesn't wrap around landscape architecture like it should.
Well, I think there's a lot of people out here, and this is the other reason why I like doing the podcast, is just educating. There's so much to landscape architecture that people just don't realize. There's so many other facets that go with it. And Dunaway, as an example, y'all have multiple disciplines there. You have civil engineering, structural engineering, planning, survey, construction inspection. So you're not a landscape architect firm, but you have these other disciplines that you can kind of holler at and say, hey, I need help here. How do we work through this and whatnot? But how long have you been with Dunaway?
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
And before that, did you have your own firm? Did you work at a firm or what?
When I got out of undergrad school, I went to Carter and Burgess
Oh, okay.
in Fort Worth, and was there almost exactly 25 years before Jacobs Engineering acquired C&B. That was a big deal. C&B was 3,000 people then, biggest A&E firm in the state of Texas.
Wow.
But Jacobs, huge, big complex engineering, and they acquired us. So eventually, through a series of steps, I had my college buddy was a main owner at Dunaway, and I called him and I said, I think it's time for a change. And so there was a few of us going to leave, and 2 of us went there, and it's been fun. Back to this whole thing of play, raising kids. My wife and I had 4, and then I adopted my nephew and niece, so I raised 6 children.
Wow.
Watching their growth, my wife's degrees in education, special ed.
Wow.
So way she would view play and kids and development, we homeschooled our older 4 kids. That was a movement. We were in that early movement in the 80s.
Wow.
So that's another way to see kid development.
Okay.
Jesse and Michaela had some special kind of needs. He was Asperger's.
Wow.
That changed the way he act. Of course, the autistic spectrum has been huge in how kids' challenges and difficulties. And so I'm emphasizing Phillip's growth and just trying to understand how kids enjoy space, not just a play piece,
Right.
but totally how they take it in. And how do they even reconnect to nature? Of course, the movement with Richard Louv's book, Last Child in the Woods, I think he hit a nerve with a lot of people in a lot of fields. It was incredible. He didn't expect that. He was a writer. He's a journalist, California. He writes a book in all these different groups because he's connecting on things about kids and where they're not connected to things or where they can be connected better. You touch on that. So I'm just saying each decade it's like you feel like you learn you don't know much at all. You feel like that. The
Wow.
older you get, the more you think, man, there's so much more I wish I knew I could relate to. And now with grandchildren, I see again the difference in play and the difference. Can they create their own experience? How much is programmed for them? If everything's programmed for them, they lose interest in a hurry.
So you bring up a good point, too, because I believe we live in a world of screens right now where you've got a phone, you've got an iPad, you've got a TV. I mean, we've got 2 of them right here at our booth, right? So they're absolutely everywhere.
Right.
And when it comes to play and outdoor play, it's more important now than ever. I mean, you talked about a lot of growth in the different levels of play. When it comes to sensory play, we see that as a huge thing in our industry right now. Having some pieces that actually look and feel kind of like a log or like a boulder or stuff like that. It just brings in a different level of play that I never even thought about.
Right.
I was never on my mind. And it's so cool to learn like little things like that as we go. And you're right. Every day I'm like, I don't know anything. And
I'm learning
so happy to continue to learn.
Yeah. I live out on some acreage, so I see, the kids, when Jesse and Michaela were growing up, how they go out and connect back to the natural world, and I see my grandkids. How can we, in a sense, replicate that or create some of those experiences in urban and suburban environments? What level of touch, movement, water, materials, throwing, moving objects around, that's kind of tricky.
Dexterity,
Right,
their hands
right.
involved.
Of course, at times I'll ask my wife questions about things because she's going to see it through a different lens. She's going to see it through children and how they develop and what she studied. So, anyway, you guys keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me ask
Fun.
you this. Let's talk a little bit more about your Dunaway as a whole. You said you have about 30 landscape architects?
Probably upper 20s.
And I know you have an office in San Antonio. You have one in Houston, too? Or?
We do.
Oh.
We just opened that. We acquired a firm down there that's in
Sweet.
engineering. So over time, we'll try to expand into landscape architecture. That's, even in my first 25 years, that's a unique market in and of itself.
Yeah.
Houston is its own global economy.
True.
It truly is. And so hopefully we can, I'm passing off the torch to younger, talented people, but hopefully Houston can be a market for us that is, as Dunaway goes forward.
My camera went out. That's what he was.
I've got
dead.
just a few more minutes before I need to get back.
No, this is great.
Kind of fun.
This is it. This is all I wanted.
Yeah, it's cool.
Just to share a little bit of nugget for these gentlemen and myself because, well, what's your world like?
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
you've expounded on it. Thank you.
Well, one other thing, trying to get the big idea that you don't move too fast to the detail, get the big idea right. And then everything, that's would be true of Steven Spielberg doing a movie, somebody's doing a piece of music, in the arts. You guys are in the arts in your own way. You get the big idea and then let everything else support the big idea. So when we collaborate, to me, I've usually in my career leading teams with a lot smarter people than me. We've got a lot of specialists, almost like going to Bass Hall and watching a symphony. The conductor, he's got these magnificent instrumentalists, cello or whatever it is. But you're trying to get them all to play together so it's magnificent. But what's the main idea? I love to just express that because when you work with the things you push ideas, push designers, push firms like us, what's the big idea? We can help you get there.
That is such a huge thing, and where I've been glad to see landscape architects really kind of coming into play in a lot more of cities, even school districts and things.
Right.
They're not just coming to us as the playground people to get a playground put together. They are reaching out to some design firms to really help coordinate that big idea, that big picture. It's been a lot of fun working with groups like yourselves to get those, our little piece of what that big idea is kind of put together, but put together really well. So when it goes before the customer, it's a lot less frustrating, I think, for them when you are orchestrating that, when you're acting as the conductor for that. Can't tell you how many designs I've sent over to a principal or a Parks and Rec guy, and he looks at it and he's like, well, I really like it, but he didn't tell me about all of these other things he's got going on over
so
here.
You couldn't put
or
it
she has going on over here, and I had no clue, no way to match it up. You guys have done an awesome job of really kind of helping bring that big picture together and make our job
you guys
fit well and
create
make us look good.
Color and movement and stuff that kids love anyway. So you may end up being that splash piece, but I'm talking about the bigger idea.
Picture.
Why are people there? What is the parent there for? Why would a birthday party be there? Or where about kids with challenges? So those are just the complexity of those spaces. So keep it up.
I love it.
Yeah. Good
Phillip,
to see you guys.
Phillip, very much
Neeley,
appreciated.
Dunaway. Thank you so much,
Thank
man.
you.
Hey, when you leave, the gentleman with Kimley Horn, what's his name? The one the landscape architect?
Probably a few of them, but
Just let him know.
tell them to come on over.
Tell him to say hi.
Go live.
Tell him it doesn't, but now you get a taste.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Kind of neat.